You actually can't be fifth. I already said fifth, I think. You'd be seventh. You guys remember that show, Seventh Heaven? I don't know why, but we watched so much of that show when I was a kid. Like, so much. About a pastor and his family or whatever. Seventh Heaven. Yeah, but I was a kid when it came out. Most of you guys were 60.
What you think about when you're born into a fire? Let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away. We feel betrayed.
That's what the show is about. A strip club in Tokyo. I grew up thinking that they were sideways. They're not. They're the same way.
Listen up now, because we're never dropping out. Beat the odds, beat the big house. The brains are bigger than the doubt. We've been thinking for ourselves, never let the truth fade away. We won't let the world burn away. We feel betrayed. We were ready to have significant. Lose the race. Wake it through the back of the pack. Kill it anyway. To play. Haters face.
Brady Bunch is awful. Oh my God. So awful.
Wake it back to the back, kill it anyway.
That this group could somehow form a family. That's the way we all became the Brady Bunch. God almighty. I'd rather be between a Black Hawk and a Canadian regional jet in the middle of Washington, D.C. than watch the Brady Bunch. Too far? Too soon?
Back in the back.
I don't know. Everything's going to shit. Because the DEI. I'm going to call it. That's the timer. Let's get it going, I guess.
Hey Daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from TikTok. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to thank you for watching Cold Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in is Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage. You know, Linda and her coochie loves that. Oh, never mind. Let's not go there. Anyways, I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Bindaland. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Oh, yeah, that guy ended up being, like, super rapey, right? That guy ended up being super rapey. I think that was that was a thing that happened, right? Stephen Collins? I don't know. Here's the most unhinged episodes since we're on the topic of Seventh Heaven.
I'm rewatching Seventh Heaven. Please, just listen to the plot of this episode I just finished. It starts with the dad, who's also a pastor, and he thinks that our country's in moral decay because people don't know the words to the Star Spangled Banner like they used to. Like, white Christian no. in the 90s. But then Mary, the second oldest, steals a glass from a local diner because she has to prove herself to her basketball team. But then the dad finds it, and he's like, well, what's this glass here? Like, oh, here he is, the glass police. So the oldest, Matt, takes the fall.
Stolen glass from a local restaurant?
For his sister and says he did it, and the dad's like, well, then you better march your butt right up to that diner and tell him you stole it. Like, this man's parenting skills, he's just trying to get his kids in more trouble. So then Matt's like, I'm so sorry, sir, I stole this from your diner. And the owner's like, oh, I'm pressing charges. And then Matt goes to jail, a prison, over a glass. So then later we're at the trial, Matt's trial for a stolen glass, and the dad is like, Matt, I just want to let you know, I'm on your side on this one. Oh, gee, thanks. You got me into this mess. But then Matt gets off the hook because all these student athletes barge in with all the shit they've ever stolen, and they're like, are you gonna arrest all of us? And the judge is like, oh, fuck no. Like, I don't even want to be here. Case dismissed. I'm rewatching.
Oh, they were wild.
Heaven.
I was into that shit.
Where Mary has a struggle with natural energy boosters. Starts with her older brother Matt, who is given these energy pills at school. His friend's just like, hey, take these. In what universe are teenagers giving away full bottles of pills? Like, who has the money? Later at basketball practice, Mary's teammate pushes the same herbal supplements on her. She's like, if you want to be good at basketball,
all natural energy boosters.
Gotta take this echinacea, girl. Then Mary and her teammate play basketball, and they are rolling so hard on ginkgo biloba.
I feel like I could play all night. 2 pills are better than 1, 4 pills are better than 2.
Established, this girl is a maniac.
2 pills are better than 1 and 4 pills are better than 2. Wow, dude.
But then the dad finds the pills, and he's a pastor, so he loves to get in everyone's business. So he visits the teammate's dad, and he's like, you're a bad dad. And the guy's like, aren't you a predator? But it's too late because the teammate
aren't you a predator?
The heart attack in front of Mary.
That didn't come out till later.
After she takes a handful of pills and washes it down with like Fruitopia. As she's getting loaded into the ambulance, there's this stupid moment where both of the dads lock eyes and don't say a word, as to say like, oh, the pastor was right. Don't even make this about the supplements. That girl had no self-control, okay? It ends with Mary and her mom and her dad sharing this triple hug as the ambulance rolls by, and they all have this look in their eyes like, that could have been you, Mary, but your dad's a pastor. I'm rewatching Seventh Heaven, and this episode I just finished is absolutely...
These are pretty good. These are pretty good. Yeah, that was Jessie. And she was going, I'm so excited. And then she breaks down in tears because they were like singing or something. She gets hooked on caffeine pills that her sleazy New York stepbrother introduces to her.
Absolute nonsense. Simon's friend has an older sister. Her name is Karen, and she is...
Every good sitcom at that time had like one episode that was like super serious about people getting hooked on drugs. Saved by the Bell actually had 2. Yeah, that's the fucking question in the chat. Anyways, Saved by the Bell actually had 2. There's another one where this famous actor comes to record a commercial with them. They're like, oh, this is so awesome. He's going to be so cool. But he does the weeds, right? So they refuse and he's like sleeping with Kelly Kapowski or something. I don't know what they don't sleep together. They make out or something. But anyways, they're like, oh, he's not cool. So they make their own commercial talking about how bad drugs are, right? They flip the script on this Hollywood guy. Pretty good. And then Zach becomes governor of California somehow.
He's in a gang. Matt is the oldest, and he is getting gang vibes from her. So he's like, what's on your belt? And she's like, it stands for baby girl. And he's like, sounds like you're in a gang. Matt pulls his parents aside, and he's like, God.
It stands for baby girl. Sounds like you're in a gang.
Karen's in a gang. And they're like, makes sense. Makes sense. So the pastor dad can't mind his fucking business. And he goes over to the house, and he's like, your daughter's in a gang. They're like, Karen? So then the three of them search her room for gang stuff, and they don't find any. So they're like, okay, she's not in a gang. And the mom has a talk with her.
I got to figure out how to relay the chat from everywhere else back to the YouTube vertical video. That's the only place it goes to the horizontal video, but it doesn't go to the vertical video.
And she's like, hey, don't be in a gang. And the girl's like, you don't know nothing. And they look for gang stuff under the younger brother's bed.
Oh my God, gang stuff. There's a logging chain, a bushcraft knife, a butterfly knife, 2 butterfly knives, 2 stilettos, switchblades, a shank made out of a clear plastic spoon, a bandana, nunchucks, envelope full of money, and a 2-ring brass knuckle. Wow.
Not the nunchucks.
Gang stuff.
Parents are like, we found your nunchucks. And Karen's like, I'm in a gang. And the pastor's still there for some reason. Karen tries to leave the gang, and they beat the hell out of her. And the pastor's in the
That stands for baby girl.
hospital room, and he's like, I could bring you somewhere safe. And they're like, shouldn't you be in jail? The huffing episode of Seventh Heaven is off
Oh, this one was crazy. They were all like huffing paint. I didn't even know that was a thing to do yet.
the charts. Simon's teacher offers him an extra credit opportunity where he can stay after school and help these boys paint a mural. These boys are grade A huffers, all right? They are.
Look how much paint. They're all like covered in paint, right? Like no one noticed they had been huffing for like months while they were painting this mural. Their faces are covered in paint every day. This guy's got it all up around his forehead and shit.
Huffing good. Look at them. They're on that good shit. They're on that Benjamin Moore. But the boys don't trust Simon.
What do you want to bet Kevin's a spy sent in to bust the whole operation?
Now, I'm not a detective, but I'm pretty sure you don't need a spy to figure this one out. Later, Simon sees them all huffing, just like out in the hallway. This kid gets a bloody nose, and Simon's like, let me get a teacher. And the kid's like, no, I've been
Chat made me do it. I don't know how we got here. Chat made me do it.
huffing, you dumb virgin. The kid eventually gets hospitalized, and Simon waits by his bedside until he wakes up. Like, you've known him for 3 days. Relax. And
Dude. 1 year, so we have this thing in my town called the Apple Festival, and it's like in October. It's like the first weekend in October, and it's like a big deal. Like we didn't have it this year because the floods and shit, but it brings in actually, it was really fucked up. They were still going to have the Apple Festival at one point, and they're like, oh, no, we're going to have to cancel it. Then there's this other thing that goes on in like a couple towns over called the Storytelling Festival, and they had people affected by the flood too, and they still try to have that shit, and like social media like fucking attacked. Ended up having to shut it down. But 1 year at the Apple Festival, they come in like all super serious to us. And they're like, oh, you're not going to believe this. But at the Apple Festival, there was some kids that got balloons with helium in them. And they try to tell us. So apparently what really happened was a kid huffed too much helium and passed out, like changing their voice or whatever. But they try to tell us it was a gateway drug. And that he huffed so much helium, like he breathed in so much helium, that it made a bubble, a helium bubble in his bloodstream that went to his heart. And then his heart was too light to work. Like, it lightened his heart. And they're like, this is what happens, you die. But we found out the guy just passed out and was good like a couple minutes later. But still, they were super serious about it.
Simon tells him, you're already in trouble, so you might as well just rat out your friends. I'm not exaggerating. This is literally what he says. And the whole time, the pastor dad's just like watching through the door hole. Like, that's my boy. And they're like, didn't you touch kids? I'm rewatching the
Didn't you touch kids? I like how he keeps throwing that in there. The guy had a bunch of shit around him, Seventh Heaven guy, for child molestation.
Base
Later on, years later.
And this episode with the drunk aunt is so good. Aunt Julie is the pastor's sister, and she's staying with the family for Thanksgiving. Watch how she greets them.
You're still way too good looking. You've gotten even uglier than your dad. They're way too good looking. You're all also gorgeous.
These two are definitely related, no question. But Julie has
Jesus,
a drinking
creepy.
problem, and she starts doing alcoholic stuff. Sneaking into the liquor cabinet late at night to have a drink, like she's in a Folgers commercial. She knocks over
Why wouldn't she bring her own liquor if she's an alcoholic?
her purse at church, and everyone's like, oh, you klutz, but not the mom. The mom's like, alcoholic. But then the turning point is when Simon takes the key to the liquor cabinet and is playing a game with it. She's tickling him. She's like, give me that key. And he's like, oh, no. And she's like, give me that key.
Simon,
And then she gets like super aggressive. I remember this one.
give me that damn key.
She like carries him by. So he's like, you can't have it. I'm hiding it like a kid would do. I guess like you would do with a kid, but he's the one doing it. She like fucking picks him up by his shirt and starts slinging him around like a rag doll. Give me that fucking key. It's crazy.
So the whole family's like, oh my God, Aunt Julie's an alcoholic. What do we do? And the pastor dad is like, we are going to put her in a room and not let her out. So on like the fourth day of Aunt Julie being a kept woman,
She's like acting crazy. They lock her in a room to get her off her alcohol addictions.
Matt switches out with his dad to watch her. She's all like, Matt, it's your girl, Julie, you know me. I just want to know if I can get a tiny little beer. Can you just sneak it up? And he's like, I don't think I can get you a beer. And then she goes feral.
Get out, you spineless little brat. I hate you, you hear me?
I'm with Julie on this one. Like,
He is kind of spineless. That's true.
if this guy had me locked up in a room reading the Bible to me every day, bring me the sauce. Julie gets better. She decides to go to rehab. And before their Thanksgiving dinner, Mary's like, can I give you a makeover? And the family is floored. They can't even
Thanksgiving alcoholic makeover
recognize
intervention.
it. I get trying to be supportive, but let's not lie to her. Like, her hair is in a braid. I'm rewatching the faith-based TV show
It was a wild show. I miss it.
from the 90s, Seventh Heaven.
I need to rewatch it. Is what I need
Episode
to.
where Simon uses the middle finger. Oh my God. Simon is the youngest son. He's hanging out with his friends after school. Watch what
Christian
happens when his mom
crimes.
sees him flipping the bird.
The face zoom. Damn, dude. Not a lot of people know this, but Atsuko actually guest starred in it. The whole reason we're talking about this is that Atsuko did a cameo in this. Right there. It was only for a few seconds, but she is the school principal.
Busted. The mom is livid. Like, she says it's like one of the worst things a human being can do. And Simon has a meeting with the principal the next day. Simon has a chat with his dad, who's also a pastor. And the dad's like, I really think you should take a break from those boys. And Simon's like, I really think someone should take a look at your hard drive. Then he has to have a chat
I think somebody take a look at your hard drive.
with his older brother Matt about using the middle finger.
That guy stuff has nothing to do with being a man. A man stands up for himself and the people he loves.
You're doing too much. It's too much. This family needs a real problem. Then Simon meets with the principal, and she suspends him for 3 days. In the car, the mom's like, look, that principal's a bitch, but you can be so much more creative than a middle finger. She's like, be worse. And then they have this moment where they hug it out in the car, and he's there. Like, what are you doing
It'd be funny if he was flipping him off. He was flipping him off. Like, it zooms into the hug, and he's like, yeah, bitch.
here? Like, go away. I'm rewatching the show Seventh Heaven. I just finished an episode where they try to trap a bulimic girl. All the Camden kids are sitting together at lunch, because of course they are. And this girl's like, oh, there's Shelby Connor going to vomit up her lunch. And Lucy's like, let's trap her. I'll invite her over to study algebra. We'll feed her dinner and then wait. Lucy's like, Shelby.
It's a bulimic sting operation.
Hey, mama, do you want to come over tonight and study and maybe like, just girly stuff? Shelby comes over for the entrapment dinner, and Lucy's like, do you want a snack? And Shelby's like, yeah, but I need to go to the bathroom. Lucy runs downstairs, and she's like, oh, Mary, I offered her a snack, and then she went to the bathroom. Babe, I don't think that's how this works. And the mom's like, oh, what are we talking about? And Lucy's like, I just want to see if Shelby's on that 3-finger diet. And the mom's like, Lucy, I smoke pot. Dinner, Shelby is scorching
I smoked pot.
down her food, and Lucy's like, oh yeah, she's gonna taste that twice. Shelby goes to excuse herself, and the mom meets her outside of the bathroom, and Shelby's like, do you think I'm bulimic? And the mom's like, I don't know, maybe. And she goes, well, I was just brushing my braces, you dumb bitch. And she explains that she's just really hungry because her mom's welfare got cut off. She knew Lucy only invited her over to see if she was bulimic, but she was like, hey, a free meal. Lucy's playing checkers, but Shelby is playing chess, okay? And we learn our big lesson.
She's actually just freaking out because she doesn't like food stuck in her braces, and her mom's welfare got cut off. It's part of the new anti-DEI initiative.
You never know if a girl is bulimic. She just might be poor.
I've smoked pot.
This whole
I've smoked pots.
episode is so deranged. Matt is given a joint by his friend in high school who's got to be pushing 40. It falls out of his jacket, and the family dog, Happy, picks it up.
Happy's extra happy, if you know what I mean.
And then drops it in front of the dad. His family is so lame. Like, even the dog is a snitch. And the dad goes on a witch hunt. Mary's eyes are red because of allergies. And he's like, oh, are they now? Matt's eating cookies. And he's like, oh, why are you eating cookies? And Lucy has been...
Everybody's still watching. I don't know so it's hard to get the chat over there, though. I don't know. I broke it.
has been listening to reggae music, and he's worried about her dating
Sorry, if you're watching on YouTube, the chat isn't relaying.
a Rastafarian. And this is him, and his name is Rod. This is when the mom tells the dad she smoked pot, and he is such a baby about it. He's like, how could you keep this secret from me? And she's like, really? Me keep a secret? Jared Fogle? Dad holds a family meeting. Matt confesses it's his
Jared Fogle.
joint, and the dad is unhinged. He says, this is why you've never been able to hold down a job. Like, dude, he's 17. So Matt runs off, and the parents are like, let's just go to the church and like pray a little bit. But Matt is there, and he's having the most convenient outer monologue. He's like, dear God, I never smoked that pot, and I never will. And they hug, and they're like, we're Christians. You need to hear how dumb this episode of Seventh Heaven is. The oldest son, Matt, doesn't have a date to the prom. So his sisters are hoping he doesn't find one because they want him to ask one of them. I really hope he asks me. Like, that is your brother.
This is, I probably didn't realize this when I was little, but that is sus, right? I hope my brother asks me to the prom. No, he's going to ask me, you loser.
The mom's like, girls will be girls. And this random man shows up at the church
I think there's a bunch of videos on the hub that start like that.
to talk to the pastor dad, and he says, I know your son Matt doesn't have a date to the prom. He needs to take my daughter Connie. Like, why are these adults always in the kids' business? And the pastor says this.
All I can do is ask, and you know how teenagers are. They never want to do what you want them to do.
Yes, officer. This man right here. Matt agrees to ask her, but there's something about Connie that he's not telling his dad. Connie is the promiscuous girl at school. She is getting around, and this is
Connie the Harlots. I knew it.
This is Tori Amos going thrifting. This is the fifth member of Bewitched. So Matt asks this scandalous girl to the prom. She's like, I can't go. I don't have a dress. And he's like, that's fine. My mom will make you one. The prom is tonight, by the way. So Matt's like, Mom, make a full prom dress in 1 hour. So she rips the living room curtains right off the
These shows are wild, dude.
and she sews this girl a whole goddamn dress from her curtains from Siemens Furniture. So Matt and Connie are at the prom, and he's like, why are you letting everybody hit it like that? Connie's like, well, my mom's dead, and we have no money.
Dude, that's the most popular form of pornography in a bunch of places. Like every year, Pornhub does their state by state and overall U.S., and it's always like ranked up there, incest, always.
And this is how I cope. We get our big lesson. You never know why a girl gets around. She just might be poor. Just finished an episode of Seventh Heaven where someone has a big, filthy secret. Wait till you find out what it is. $2,500 is missing from the church bank account, and the Reverend Dad's trying to figure it out. So the Reverend calls Lou, the church treasurer, and his wife picks up, and she is acting so weird. Like she's being held hostage. He's like, Mom, where's the dough? And she can't even speak. She's like, So he meets with the treasurer, who admits that he took the money and he's going to give it back to him tomorrow. The pastor's like, what'd you need the money for? And Lou is like, none of your business. The pastor's like, everything's my business. And Lou is like, we'll call Chris Hansen. So the mom and the dad start speculating on what they think the problem could be. And
I will call Chris Hansen.
Christians, they're enjoying it way too much. So they're like, let's show up at their doorstep tonight, unannounced, and confront them. They catch them red-handed with a secret autistic child. They've been keeping him hidden.
And he's like a full-grown... I remember this episode, too. He's like a full-grown adult. Not like... He's a full-grown adult, dude. This secret autistic child that no one knew they had is like 30.
Off the grid, autistic son. The state home closed, and they needed the money to get him into a new home. These two, they're like, oh, we're so sorry. We have 7 kids, but none autistic. And then we have our big lesson. You never know why a church treasurer steals money. They could just have a secret autistic son.
That's the big secret.
And before this episode of...
It's this show that I don't know why, but we watched so much of this show when I was little. I don't know if it's just like a good time slot. We only got, when I was little, growing up at home, we only got 2 channels unless the weather was exceptionally good. Then we got 3 channels because we were just on antenna. And then when I got older, like when I was like probably getting ready to go into high school, we got DirecTV, and my dad found a guy at the flea market. So the DirecTV used this really weird system to, at first, it changed, but they used this really weird system to decide what channels you got. It was like this card with almost like the chips that you have on your debit cards now, the NFC chips. It was like that. And you put it into the back of your box, and that told them what channels you got. Now, if you updated your package, they just, I guess, sent a signal to like update your card. You didn't get like a new card in the mail, or maybe they sent a guy out. I don't know. But you could just get burner cards of those, and you'd go to the flea market, and some guy would just unlock all the channels for you for like 10, 15 bucks. And you bring it back and you stick it in. Now, randomly, not all the time, they would send out a signal that would wipe the card. If it was like a burner card or an unlocked card or whatever, it would wipe that card, and you'd have to get a new one. So we were only allowed to put in the card, the burner card, when like dad was home and there was something like we wanted to watch a football game or something like a family movie night or something. We had to use the shitty card all the rest of the time, and just in case they zapped it. We were really poor. But then later on, like towards the end of like when I was in high school, my dad made more money, so we could leave the burner card. And hell, we had burner cards on burner. We had 2 of them at all times, right? And you could like they zap that one, fuck them. We'll stick the other one in. It'd be good for another month. Crazy.
Seventh Heaven with white thugs, please. Matt sees his younger brother Simon hanging out with these local baddies, and he's very disappointed. He's like, baggy clothes? The Beastie Boys? This is the leader of the group.
This is like a bad guy from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like a street level thug.
His name is Norton. Norton slaps Lucy's butt at the record store, and Simon won't stick up for her because he's terrified of Norton. Then the mom shows up, and she's like, what's going on? Like, where'd you come from? And Norton's like, look at this hot, fine piece of meat. And she's like, excuse me?
You don't belong on the streets. Because you got no respect for me. So no, man.
You got no respect for... You don't belong on the streets, mama.
Uh-oh. What's she gonna do?
Want a piece of this?
There's 9 of you over there. I just don't know why no one's talking.
I brought 7 kids into this world. I can take one out.
Ooh, street cred.
He didn't know who he was messing with. She smoked. Then back at home, the pastor dad has a real problem with Simon.
Ooh. Where'd you get those pants? Take them off right now! I know it's coming.
You know where you're going if you keep wearing your pants like that? Prison.
Well, that's where you should be. Then Norton takes it way too far when he harasses Matt's deaf girlfriend. Like, why is this so
Oh, yeah, I forgot he had a deaf girlfriend.
He's like, hey, you're gonna apologize to my mother and that girl who's deaf. But it's too late for Norton because the cops come and take him away. This is a
The cops come and arrested him for making fun of a deaf girl.
little dramatic, no? Like, you'd think he stole a glass from a diner or something. This episode of Seventh Heaven.
It's YouTube. YouTube, I have the vertical video on tonight, but the chat doesn't relay, so it seems like there's nobody in there.
Is outrageous.
Hey, look what I've done.
Simon finds a homeless girl on the street and he brings her home
Can I keep her?
to keep her as a pet.
Can I keep her? He found a homeless girl and said, can I keep her?
And when Simon's talking to his dad about it, he's like, she's my dog now, right? And the dad isn't even like, no, she's a person. He's like, well, we'll see. So they clean her up. She will not speak. And Simon and Ruthie, his younger sister, have this conversation about her like she's not even in the room.
Ruthie was like super sassy. She always had like those one-liners where she's like, well, I guess we all learned a lesson, except for Simon, or something like that.
They fight over who gets to have possession of her, and Ruthie calls her it. So Simon starts training her by showing her which rooms she can go into and giving her treats like she's a goddamn border collie. And then the dad starts just working at the police department.
All of these are missing children? Just the ones we haven't put on the computer database yet.
Oh, we know why you're there. So the girl's dad stumbles into the police
Database free.
department and he's drunk and he's like, where's my Sarah? And they're like, who are you? Can't you tell? He's from the same homeless makeup department. Learn that Sarah's dad is not homeless, but the pastor dad and the cop just break into his home. The pastor's just like, I want to see how poor he is. So the dad comes home and he's like, Simon, watch this. Her name is...
The reason the chat works, I don't understand why it doesn't work, because the reason it works is because of a program called Restream. And I'm using Restream to stream to, I don't understand, but whatever.
Sarah, and it just like unlocks her. She can suddenly talk and she is an exposition machine. She's like, yes, I am Sarah. My father is very sick. He has alcoholism. It's been very hard since he lost his job.
As soon as they learn her name, it unlocks her. It's like rubbing like a genie's lamp.
2 years ago, and then my mom left. So then the pastor dad goes to their house at night to clean it, but he does it to teach his oldest son a lesson. He's like, if you don't follow a righteous path, this could be your future. There is an episode of Seventh Heaven where Matt stops to help this pregnant girl on the side of the road, but she's a teenage runaway carjacker. And this is our rough and tough girl on the run.
She's a carjacker. She steals Matt's Camaro. Gone.
Look, she just went shopping at Delia's. After Matt is stranded with this girl's car that won't start, the cops show up, and Matt's like, oh, thank God, this pregnant teenager just carjacked me. And the cop is like, nice try, buddy. That car you have there is stolen, and you're coming with us. Then the Reverend Dad just like joins the police force to track down this girl. He's not going to pass up spying on teenagers.
It is kind of weird he keeps joining the police force.
Girls, we learn her name is Teresa, and she's a runaway, and the car that she stole was her parents' car. So Teresa stays with the Camdens for a few days so she can see how much they all love each other. It's so cruel. Matt's like, I love my silly, goofy mom. And she's like, well, I love my silly, goofy son. They're like, oh, look how much we love each other. And you're just a pregnant teen with a criminal history. Teresa ran away from home because she said her parents would disown her if she ever got pregnant. So the Camdens invite the parents over. They're like, surprise, she's pregnant.
Your daughter's
And the mom's
pregnant.
like, look, kids are tough. Mine don't even separate the colors from the whites when I ask them to. And then they're like, you're pregnant? No, we're disowning you. And then they leave. But all the Camden kids have been watching the live abandonment from the stairs. And they use it as a lesson. They're like, we should separate our whites and our colors. I'm rewatching Seventh Heaven, and this...
Yes, they do decide that they should do more laundry around the house. because that girl's parents just abandoned her because she was pregnant. They're like, oh, we should do more laundry around the house.
Episode is so bizarre. The Reverend Dad is supposed to be watching his senile father-in-law who set the backyard on fire. The pastor would rather be at the hospital because he loves lurking in the hospital for no reason. So he passes the grandpa off to his youngest son, Simon. So Simon's driving very slow with his learner's permit, and these cops start tailing him. So grandpa's like, hit the gas. When he does, the cops think the car is stolen, so they put their sirens on. And then the grandpa's like, whatever, don't pull over. So Simon doesn't.
Don't pull over.
Now
Screw it.
run. Like, there are multiple cars following.
What's up,
this car
Billy's
chase
mom?
is big news. Like, every channel in the country is televising it. And look at this car chase. This has to be the slowest televised car chase ever. And everybody is watching it go down. Like, it's OJ's white Ford Bronco. And then the pastor dad just...
So the dad's watching at the hospital and the whole family's watching at the house. They're like, wait, is that Simon and Grandpa?
pulls up in a cop car next to Simon. And he's like, Simon, pull over.
The dad joined the police again, and somehow he becomes part of the car chase.
And Simon's like, shouldn't you be in the backseat of that thing? So Simon surrenders himself, and he looks up at his dad, and he's like, oopsies. And the dad's like, oh, you. And then we get our big lesson. You never know why there's a slow-speed car chase. The show writers might just be out of ideas. Okay, Lucy Camden, let's unpack some of this trauma of yours.
This is a pretty good channel. I need to subscribe to this.
Your family, did they have any substance abuse issues?
My aunt was an alcoholic, my sister was hooked on natural energy boosters, and my brother had
Is that really her doing a bit?
baggy pants phase.
God, that is disturbing. What about your dating history?
Well, there was Jimmy Moon, and then there was Ronald, who was, and Rod the Rastafarian. Rod was so clingy, though.
You can't just
Rod the Rastafarian.
drop by. You have to respect the fact that I'm in a serious relationship with an older man, and he wouldn't like this.
I didn't know where else to go. My mom died.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. No, that's, really sad. You have an ex-husband, Kevin, here. Do you want to talk about him?
I mean, he was jealous of my own brother who was delivering our baby.
You better not be looking at my wife. Kevin, I'm a doctor. You're her brother. But I'm a
This is when they were like adults. So this went on forever. I'm delivering my sister's baby. You better not be looking at my wife's lady bits. I'm a doctor and her brother. We're into this.
doctor. I hope that doesn't mean what I think it means.
I see why you divorced him. But it says here you think most of your trauma comes from your mom.
Yes.
Why?
She smoked.
That's crazy. She just sat down to do this bit with him.
Oh my God, this family is so messed up.
She smoked pot once. That was pretty good. That's some throwback there. I enjoyed that. That was fun. Hope you enjoyed it with me. MAGA celebrity's husband's getting deported. She's pissed. Imagine. Got to be bad. What is this, the find out phase?
We continue to follow the stories of Trump supporters who...
Thanks for reliving part of my childhood with me. If you guys ever want to watch Zoids, I'm down to watch every fucking episode of both different... There's one that's New Century, and there's one that's like Chaotic Century or something. I will watch them all. Let me know.
Who vote for Trump, get what they voted for, then express confusion at what they got. Okay? The latest example is Riley Gaines. You probably heard that name before. She's a big, particularly on the trans issues, MAGA figure.
Surely not Riley Gaines.
Appeared on stage with Trump. She's just all out there, right? Very prominent. And she was impacted now. And hear her story. Then we're going to talk about, she tries to make this, no, I'm not necessarily saying, I'm not saying it's Trump's fault. But this is her husband potentially being deported, the husband who had legal status but is losing it. And then we'll look at another story similar of sort of a deportation impacting someone who voted for.
No, it's only violent criminals. By the way, this argument is wild. You will not find real fucking people who are like, yeah, let's keep the violent criminals in the United States. No one's saying that. But that's the way they always frame. I can't believe, the left just wants rapers and murderers here. What?
For Trump, but hear her story because some of her confusion around, wait, but I thought he had legal status is what we've mentioned to people about when you proceed with the policies of the Trump administration, you end up impacting a lot of folks you didn't even expect you're going to impact. While you watch, please do click the subscribe button.
Just got another letter from Immigration Services. I've made a video about this before, but I'm a U.S. citizen, born and raised in Tennessee, went to college at University of Kentucky, met my husband.
By the way, she's like a MAGA sweetheart, right? Because she was one of the people that come up and stood up for the trans issues and college athletics and she made her whole platform's based off that, right?
husband there, he's an immigrant. He moved over to the US for college on an athletic scholarship from England. We've been married almost 3 years now. We're coming up on 3 years. So you would think he is well on his way to achieving his citizenship, or at least having his green card, right? No, wrong. And why can't he get his green card? Because his medical records aren't complete. And what is missing from his medical record? The COVID vaccine. Like, it is the year 2025, and we are still requiring the COVID vaccine. You can see it right here. It's backwards.
It's amazing who gets caught up in this when you authorize unprecedented power to one fucking person.
Complete the COVID-19 vaccine. But this is what they do. This is what they do to people who do it the right way. I can't even tell you how much money, thousands of dollars, we have spent on the different forms and applications and immigration lawyers and all of the different things, all for everything to expire on their time anyways. And for all you people who say, oh, Riley, your husband's here illegally, he should be deported, just so you don't understand immigration. He is very much here legally. There are other ways to obtain residency than a green card, like visas or advanced parole, or those of you who say, this is what you get when
But he's being deported, right?
you voted for Donald Trump. Obviously, my husband can't vote, but if he could, he would have voted for Donald Trump. Change is coming with the current administration, but he has
That would have been stupid.
to undo everything that the former administration has done to our immigration system, both legally and illegally. Oh, and when they campaigned on the tagline, my body, my choice, this is proof they never really meant that.
Yeah, but that was required when Trump was president. And it's still on the books from the Trump presidency. So
Yeah, we've addressed that bizarre connection to vaccinations before when no one's being forced. It's if you want, as an immigrant, to live in the country, there may be vaccination requirements for the sake of public health. Also, she has a long record of being dishonest, so I have no idea if that's the actual hang up, but if it is, then my statement stands. But what's interesting is she has this attitude of, see, this is what the Biden administration does. No, Riley, we have long wanted to streamline and make more effective our legal immigration system. It is actually your ideology, and you're cheerleading for Trump and MAGA.
that's another thing. They want to blame shit on the administration they don't like. Like I saw there was a post on this blows my mind. And I know it's just because they're grifters, but I want to think that people think logically. So we have this Eric Daugherty. Eric says, "Hey Democrats, if your first impulse is in response to a deadly aircraft crash over the Potomac River, is to find reasons to blame President Trump, it makes you a disgusting human being and exemplifies why the American people rejected your lunacy this past November. Adults are handling this. Shut the fuck up." But I think they forget that Trump literally held a press conference just to blame Biden, Obama, and minorities for the crash. Right? What's the first thing Trump did when California had a wildfire? He was like, "Hey guys, let's calm down the rhetoric and just get some help going their way." Or no, that wasn't it. Like literally, he held a press conference, and he was like, "Okay, DEI caused this." They're like, "Oh, so question, you know what caused this?" Nope. The only thing we know is that an airplane, that's the thing with wings, and a helicopter, that's the thing with big blades, were in the same place at the same time. Yeah, no shit. That's how things crash. They're occupying the same place at the same time. We got it. But it was definitely DEI.
And the right-wing approach to immigration, the current right-wing, it used to be different, that seeks to put as many roadblocks up as possible, as many obstacles. And what we're already seeing, her particular example aside, is that, yes, Trump is going after people with legal status as well. I told you, when you start dehumanizing and demonizing the way that Trump has, it's going to cross over and not see.
Trump, in his speech the other day, said unqualified children. Was that the phrase he used?
Undocumented and lawful immigrants. And that's what's happening. CBS reports the Trump administration's swift crackdown on immigration has moved beyond those living in or entering the United States illegally, with officials also issuing bans and restrictions on legal immigration, including programs for refugees displaced by violence. And before getting into another video of a Trump voter, let me just get into the specifics on this with less fanfare.
Yeah, unqualified children.
5 votes on a Supreme Court.
What position?
Birthright citizenship.
Do you think the Supreme Court will support your position on birthright citizenship?
I think so, yeah. Look, birthright citizenship was, if you look back when this was passed and made, that was meant for the children of slaves. This was not meant for the whole world to come in and pile into the United States of America, everybody coming in, and totally unqualified people with perhaps unqualified children. This wasn't.
with perhaps unqualified children. Children should never be unqualified, dude. Fuck off. With perhaps unqualified children. I don't think he's when he's talking about the helicopter and he's like, you could have slowed down substantially. You know, helicopters, they can slow down. It could have went up, could have went down. You could have went straight up. You could have went straight down. There's a million different maneuvers a helicopter could have done. I don't think he knows how helicopters work.
Mr. Trump's actions have closed pathways for vetting and legally admitting hundreds of thousands of people fleeing war-torn Ukraine.
He said, helicopters, what's that? Someone's like, it's the Uppy Downy boys. That's what they do.
Taliban control Afghanistan and other troubled parts of the world, including crisis-stricken Haiti and Venezuela. This is a lawful mechanism of immigration that we're discussing here. Then the article goes on. Refugee admission suspended. Hours after taking office, Mr. Trump indefinitely paused the U.S. refugee admissions program, instructing officials to ban the entry of all refugees, a special legal classification for people vetted overseas who prove they are fleeing persecution based on their political beliefs, religion, or other factors. This is people doing it correct, as Riley Gaines would put it. And it's not the...
Have you guys seen that? Hold on. This clip best exemplifies the MAGA Christians. I'm sure you've seen it. I probably played it on here before.
If Jesus was here right now, would you let him in?
If Jesus was here right now, would you let him in the country? If Jesus was here right now, they're the whirly birds. Would you let him in the country? That's what they're asking this woman. Well, they're asking the man, but the woman cuts in.
If Jesus was here right now, would you let him in?
Of course I would.
Why?
As long as he went through the proper, as long as he
came here legally.
As long as he went through the proper, it's Jesus. If Jesus was here, would you let it, as long as he went through the proper paperwork, the process, it's Jesus Christ. The H stands for, hey, you didn't fill out this form correctly.
As long as Jesus Christ came to this country legally, we would let him in. Gentlemen, thank you. If Jesus was here right now, would you let him in?
Of course I would.
Why?
As long as he went through the proper, as long as he
came here legally. As long as Jesus Christ came to this country legally.
He can't even hold it back. He just starts engaging with the camera and they walk away in shame.
We would let him in. Gentlemen, thank you. If Jesus was here right now, would you let him in?
Of course I would.
Why?
That's wild, dude. Wild. You know, Jesus would be brown. Just saying.
The Biden administration, that's bye-bye, making it more difficult. It is a part of the ideology you've supported, saying folks are poisoning the blood. Oh, no, well, he only meant that when it comes to... that distinction goes away very quickly when you start the dehumanization. Because how does the fundamental humanity of somebody change with legal status? So if you say, not just my stance, which is we should have a secure border, we should enforce immigration laws, we should have a better process, we should have lawful immigration. But for you to say, no, not just that, we also want to say that you're not a human if you're doing it illegally. Well, then that line doesn't make any sense. No members of the MAGA base, as we saw with the H-1B visa outcry, is going to understand the difference because now it's about the humanity, not the process, not the laws, the humanity. That's what you've supported, Riley. So now, maybe yours is a carryover by administration, whatever, but people in your situation with their loved ones who even have legal status, who've done it the correct way, who've applied in their country, who are being persecuted, whatever the story might be. Trump's saying no, because those folks poison the blood. Isn't that what I said? NPR reporting the Trump administration is revoking a Biden-era extension for temporary protected status, or TPS, for Venezuelans, a move that removes the work authorization. So work authorization, I don't know if she said that her husband was work or maybe school or athletics, the work authorization for hundreds of thousands of immigrants and makes them eligible for deportation. And this is what Trump indicated he was going to do. And so many people thought, no, but it's not going to be me. Because surely the dehumanization doesn't carry over to me. And here's an example of a man whose wife has been deported.
Oh, yeah, this guy voted for Trump. I just saw this. I don't think they were able to confirm it, but he's got a picture of her and he's claiming it. I guess he could be trolling the fucking media.
They turned off the cameras, excuse my language, and then they took my wife.
This man who wished not to be identified says his wife is from Venezuela and has lived in the United States.
How funny would it be if this guy just wanted people to believe so hard that he had a wife that he made all this up?
For a few years. She was one of 3 people taken from this home. I'm told the 2 others were men who worked in construction. You see them here. This video, only a minute and 52 seconds long, we do not see his wife being removed from the home. But this is a picture of her that he keeps in his wallet. Her name is Vianis Ramirez, and he says she was in the process of becoming a United States citizen.
She already had a court date. She was good. Everything good. He just came in and snatched her.
These are pictures from the Department of Homeland Security detaining other undocumented men and women in Broward County.
It's despicable what they're doing right now. It's very embarrassing.
President Donald Trump arrived at his Trump National Golf Resort in Doral Saturday, set to host GOP leaders for a conference. This man hopes this message makes it to him.
I get a chance to talk to you, man. Yo, please, man, let's work something out. So, you, man, let me keep my wife here in the United States, man. She deserves to be here, man.
She deserves it.
1,000 raids in the country on Sunday alone, which is up from just under 300 on Saturday. Here at the detention center in Miramar, things have been quiet for several hours, but we will continue to monitor this situation and bring you the developing news on raids in South Florida as they happen.
Right. And so then going back to the first video that we watched, this is the argument we've been making, which often I should say causes the hang up, which is that whenever we get into immigration negotiations, even though that one time the border security thing was really what Republicans wanted, they still slapped it down because they don't want Biden to win. But on other, like when Biden initially came into office and had his immigration reform package that was slapped down by Republicans.
By the way, don't let them stand on, oh, the border thing. The reason they shut it down is how much funding was going to Ukraine? Zero. It was a clean bill. It was a fucking clean bill.
The thing that happens is we say, yeah, let's do enhancements to our border. Let's invest more.
She's documented if she's becoming a citizen. It's very wide sweeping, right? Even people that have completed the process are not safe.
In sort of what you would call enforcement, fine. We do want a logistically sound and secure border, but we need to pair that with a comprehensive approach as it pertains to some.
They've revoked a bunch of the ways that people can be living in this country, so they're no longer here legally.
The more systemic.
If you're here one way and you're working on becoming a citizen and they revoke some temporary work or work visas or whatever program you're under, then you're no longer here legally. Not to mention they're just grabbing fucking legal citizens that have never immigrated anywhere. They're just being rounded up because they're brown and in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Problems with the system in the processing of folks with legal status and making more efficient, because I've also had people in my life who are going through this, doing it the quote unquote right way, and it is a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. And so that's a part of the problem.
All right, let's see what we got over here. That was Luke Beasley, by the way. Tulsi Gabbard.
I continue to have significant concerns about your judgment and your qualifications to meet the standards set by law. First, as I noted previously, the DNI was created in part to make sure we had appropriate intelligence.
By the way, it's almost basically confirmed that she's just like a Russian puppet.
Which prior to 9/11, obviously we haven't. But the mission also is to not only share information between the IC, but also with our allies. There's no...
That's the problem with like sweeping orders. So if for some reason there's a problem with like, so a lot of times there'll be like slots for like the Haitians, right? That was under the Trump administration, that there was this order put in place that for temporary work visas for like Haitians. And if there's a problem with that program and somebody wants to sit down and say, okay, there's a problem with this program, we probably need to roll it back. That's one thing. To the sweeping, like everything that was happening under the Biden administration is just gone now. No one knows who it's affecting, who it isn't. Will it affect this? Will it won't? And they don't give any guidance for it, right? It's just fucking widespread and takes down all these programs that are in place. The same thing with the freezes. Like we're freezing all federal funding that doesn't go directly to individuals. That's a lot of shit. Then they come up with crazy shit like we're sending $50 million worth of condoms to Gaza. None of that's true.
No legal requirement that our allies share intelligence with us. It's all predicated on trust. Trust that our allies will protect each other's secrets. It appears to me you have repeatedly excused our adversaries' worst actions, and instead often blame them on the United States and those very allies. For example, you blame NATO for Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. You rejected the conclusion that Assad used chemical weapons in Syria.
If she isn't getting paid to spread Russian propaganda, then she's the dumbest fucking person on the planet. Even Tim Pool got scammed into getting paid $5 million. If she isn't getting paid, then she's retarded.
Despite it being the unanimous assessment of the then Trump administration's DOD, State Department, and IC, as well as the assessment of our European allies. Instead, you blame the United States for supporting terrorist groups in Syria. Now, I don't know if your intent in making those statements was to defend those dictators, or if you were simply unaware of the intelligence and how your statements would be perceived. In either case, it raises, at least for this senator, serious questions about your judgment. It also
the chat from the YouTube is working fine on the screen. It's just not work. I don't know. That's weird.
Leads me to question.
It's not relaying.
Whether you can develop the trust necessary to give our allies confidence that they can share their most sensitive intelligence with us. Make no mistake about it. If they stop sharing that intelligence, the United States will be less safe. We've seen this as recently as this past year, where because of those strong intelligence sharing between the United States and Austria, countless lives were saved by disrupting a terrorist attack that was going to take place at the Taylor Swift concert in Vienna. Second, you've been publicly outspoken in your praise and defense of Edward Snowden, someone who betrayed the trust of our nation and jeopardized the security of our country. The truth is, the vast majority of the information he stole and leaked before running off to China and Russia, might I add, had nothing to do with Americans' privacy and compromised our most important sources and methods. In many ways, we're still paying a price for that. And I believe that Edward Snowden's action put our men and women in uniform in places like Iraq and Afghanistan at risk. You've celebrated Snowden as, quote, brave whistleblower, and actually put forward legislation asking for his pardon.
I can understand some of the criticism about Edward Snowden. He did leak a lot of shit that did not have to do with just American privacy stuff. But I think they're going after him probably way too harshly. And the stuff that he did leak that had to do with your own fucking privacy was probably pretty fucking... we should have known that, right? Somebody should have leaked it.
Furthermore, when given the opportunity to clarify your position in pre-hearing questions, you declined. And instead, you expressed, and again, I quote, the DNI has no role in determining whether or not Edward Snowden is a lawful whistleblower. Well, that is troubling to me in so many ways. Not only do you think that someone who divulged secrets and then ran off to Russia should be celebrated as brave, but you don't seem to understand the DNI's role.
I heard that. Pete Hegseth has now launched an investigation into Milley, which is wild. Stripped him of his security detail and calls for an investigation, orders investigation into his conduct.
In determining whistleblower determinations. In fact, the DNI has a significant role in transmitting lawful whistleblower complaints to this committee. They're all laid out right here in the statute. And I would have serious concerns about confirming someone who cannot distinguish between complaints that are made lawful.
Trying to get him reduced in rank. Yeah.
And those that are made not. In the statute, it says the job of the DNI is to protect intelligence sources and methods from unauthorized disclosure. That's a quote. I guess I'm asking, what message would it send to have a DNI who would celebrate the work of a member of the IC or a contractor that would, on their own mission, to decide what's...
By the way, Kash Patel did it too, and now he suddenly doesn't know who Stu Peters is, doesn't know anything about the J6 choir that he produced the music for, paid for kids' college with.
Appropriate to leak. I don't understand it. Third, until recently, you had a clear and consistent...
The reason that Milley has a security detail is there are credible Iranian threats. So basically, anybody that served like around Trump, Iran put threats on him after Trump had that Iranian general fucking bombed with a fucking drone or whatever, the drone attack. So because there's credible threats, he had a security detail.
Of opposing FISA 702. I know members on this committee already understand how important this is, but for folks who don't, this law is critical to our national security. Literally 60% on average of what goes into the president's daily brief, what President Trump will read each day in assessing what's going on in the world, comes...
Don't worry, he doesn't read them, or at least his first administration said he doesn't even fucking read them. They can't keep his attention long enough to go over the security briefings every day.
From this important piece of law that allows us to seek out those foreigners abroad for coverage. And it's helped prevent terrorist attacks. It helps us prevent foreign cyber attacks. It helps us on a topic that a lot of folks are looking at, fentanyl trafficking. Now, many in this Congress and many on the committee have tried to reform this legislation to better balance security and civil liberties. However, you have consistently gone further. Not only did
they sneak his name into it different places and like compliments to him so he'll pay more attention. That's so fucking crazy, dude.
Against reauthorizing 702, you actually introduced legislation to fully repeal the whole thing. calling it again, quote, a blatant disregard for our Fourth Amendment constitutional rights. Now, I understand that since you've been nominated to be DNI, you've expressed a change of heart. I think that's welcome. But I have to tell you, as I view this as a job interview, as I try to make my judgment on whether you should be confirmed, I don't find your change of heart credible. Until you were nominated by the president to be the DNI, you consistently praised the actions of Edward Snowden. Some who, I believe, jeopardized the security of our nation and then, in an effort to flaunt that, fled to Russia. You even called Edward Snowden, and I quote here, a brave whistleblower. Every member of this committee supports the rights of legal whistleblowers.
We're getting ready to get into her statements here.
Snowden isn't a whistleblower. And in this case, I'm a lot closer to the chairman's words, where he said Snowden is, quote, an egotistical serial liar and traitor who, quote, deserves to rot in jail for the rest of his life. Scabbard, a simple yes or no question. Do you still think Edward Snowden is brave?
Now, Mr. Vice Chairman, Edward Snowden broke the law. I do not agree with or support with all of the information and intelligence that he released, nor the way in which he did it. There would have been opportunities for him to come to you on this committee or seek out the IG to release that information. The fact is, he also, even as he broke the law, released information that exposed egregious, illegal, and unconstitutional programs that are happening within our government that led to serious reforms that Congress undertook.
Chairman, we got 5 minutes. So I take your answer, and these are your quotes. Brave.
Had to compliment her outfit before she listened to you.
To be dropped against him. Do you disagree that legislation was not appropriate?
Yeah, if anything, Pete Hegseth's confirmation tells us that he was woefully unqualified for the job. I don't even think he understands what goes on at that level because he's never worked at that level. Whether you like the guy or not, he's unqualified. And when something pops off, I don't know. I'm worried about it. Hopefully he has great generals around him, but hell, they're trying to strip the fucking generals from around him, right? And put in Trump loyalists. Scary.
Appropriate? Do you believe he is brave or not?
Yeah,
went back those words?
Once again, Senator, Edward Snowden broke the law. He also released information that exposed the United States government's illegal
your
programs.
Legislation and your words are still your beliefs.
They all have. And there's no way to... I mean, Kash Patel's definitely lying. He doesn't know who Stu Peters is. He doesn't know who the J6 choir was. He produced the music and used that to pay bills for the families of the people that were locked up, right? The J6 insurrectionists, they paid their bills and put together college funds and shit like that. Like, there's just not a penalty for... They're just lying.
Yes or no, please.
I'm making myself very clear. Edward Snowden broke the law. He released information about the United States government's illegal activities. If I may just finish my thought, Senator. In this role that I've been nominated for, confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will be responsible for protecting our nation's secrets, and I have 4 immediate steps that I would take to prevent another Snowden-like leak.
Ma'am, I would simply ask you again. I don't think you're going to answer. I agree with Tom Cotton. He's a traitor. You, for years, until you got chosen by President Trump, have celebrated this guy as brave. You've called for him to be pardoned, for his charges to be dropped?
Yes, he basically free college for insurrectionists. Yeah, their kids are all going to college for free.
I cannot imagine a director of national intelligence that would say that kind of behavior is okay. How would we maintain the trust of the IC and the contractors who work for? How would we maintain the trust of our Five Eye partners? I find it very true.
He was on Stu Peters' show 8 times. And the just one of the segments, if you pull it up, he's like, hey, thanks, Stu Peters. You know, I love being on your show. This is one of my favorite shows to come on. I have no idea who that is.
Let me move to 702. I know the member's going to raise this. Remember, the 702 is critical to our national security. 60% of the president's daily brief, 60% of the information President Trump gets every day in PDB will come from this. You've had a long history of opposing 702. Many members of Congress have. But one of the things you've actually done that not many have is not to reform it, but you actually say you wanted to repeal it. But now, whether it's confirmation conversion or whatever you call 702 vital, and I'm quoting, because of significant FISA reforms have been enacted since you left Congress. Ms. Gabbard.
Confirmation conversion is a very, very, very good tag to put on this, right? They all change as soon as they're up for confirmation.
What are the reforms that have led you to now support 702?
In the short time that I have, Senator, I will just note that my actions in legislation in Congress were done to draw attention to the egregious civil liberties violations that were occurring at that time.
Ms. Gabbard, Gabbard, I ask you a question. Please give me the courtesy.
702 is Section 702 is the FISA stuff, right? Limited, restricted, targeted surveillance of foreign people located in the United States.
Responding, you said the reforms now make you support it. What can you cite? Which reforms?
There are a number of reforms to include getting rid
in the new law,
that all of you and your wisdom.
My time is getting short, but I got to just tell you, after the reforms were passed into law in April of 24, you went on Joe Rogan's podcast in May. The bill is now law, and you said, "quote, This bill took an already bad problem and made it many, many times worse. Again, in my mind, this is a question of judgment. 702 is critical. I appreciate this late conversion, but
the trolley.
Oh,
I'm not sure I buy it because you had such a consistent position. Again, I know my colleagues can raise these, but rather than standing up to dictators like Putin and Assad, you sometimes amplify his talking points. I mean, I just do not understand how you can blame NATO for Putin's brutal invasion.
Kind of looking like Cruella de Vil a little bit.
Of Ukraine. And when Assad used chemical weapons against his own people, he didn't condemn him. I can go through all the quotes. He actually questioned Americans' intelligence. Now, you mentioned a lot about trust. And one of the things that I'm so proud on this committee is my friend Senator Verse said, we always follow the truth. I say in this committee, it's the most valuable work I do in this, and we have a bipartisan approach to intelligence. I think we have worked to try to keep the intelligence community and earn their trust, and frankly, earn the trust of the American people. But I, respectfully, ma'am, I just don't believe on your judgment and credibility issues that this is the appropriate role that you should take going forward.
I noted that Edward Snowden was in Hawaii, of all places, for a year and a half before he fled to Hong Kong and then on to Russia. Did you ever meet him or have any contact with him during that period, or subsequently with telephone calls, emails, Zooms, contact with he or his lawyers?
No, Senator, not at any time have I had contact with Edward Snowden.
And you introduced a bill in 2020 that was essentially a pardon. It basically said all charges should be dropped. You had a lot of whereases in that bill. Where did the factual basis for those whereas clauses come from?
Senator, if I recall, in that bill, it came from publicly available information.
I see. And were you aware that there was a bipartisan committee report from the House Intelligence Committee in 2016 on Snowden's activities?
I don't recall specifically at that time, but I am aware of that committee's report and executive summary that was reported publicly. I did not have access to the classified report that summary was based on.
Did you read that report prior to filing your bill in 2020?
Senator, I don't recall specifically. I remember reading a lot of materials prior to filing that bill.
Well, the bipartisan committee report, the first item, Edward Snowden perpetrated the largest and most damaging public release of classified information in U.S. intelligence history. Goes on to say Snowden caused tremendous damage to national security, and the vast majority of the documents he stole have nothing to do with programs impacting individual privacy. But you don't recall ever seeing.
I think if he would have just released the ones that had to do with like, hey, your government's spying on you, it probably would have went over a lot better.
The work of that committee.
I'm aware of those conclusions drawn. Edward Snowden.
Were you aware at the time?
Yes, I was, Senator.
Yeah.
Edward Snowden broke the law. There's no question about that. He should not have released all of that information that caused that harm. There's no question about that.
How many documents did he release?
I know that he took over 1 million documents. I don't know specifically how many of those million he specifically released.
Well, you stated very unequivocally today, Snowden broke the law, but you introduced a bill in Congress along with Congressman Matt Gaetz to essentially pardon him. So he broke the law, but it wasn't all that serious. Is that what you thought in 2020?
I take very seriously upholding our Constitution. And now, an oath to support and defend that Constitution over 8 times in my life. My statements in the past.
She looks like she harvests Dalmatian puppies.
Have been reflective of the egregious and illegal programs that were exposed in that leak.
But you ignore the vast majority, as the committee found, bipartisan. I think Devin Nunes was the chair, Adam Schiff was the vice chair. The conclusion was that the vast majority of these.
Have you guys seen Wicked? Is it good? Should we watch it?
Things that he released had nothing to do with constitutional rights, the Fourth Amendment, but indeed were enormous compromises of our national security.
Senator, I focused on raising concerns around egregious, illegal, and unconstitutional programs that our government was conducting that clearly violated Americans' Fourth Amendment rights. I think the most important thing that I hope all of you find to be relevant here is that if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I would take seriously the responsibility to protect our nation's secrets, just as I have for almost 20 years of holding a security clearance of some sort myself, either secret or top secret, and have never once violated the responsibility and privilege that comes with holding that clearance, and have a specific action plan in place to make sure that there is not another Snowden-type leak in the future.
I think you testified that you never saw the classified version of this report.
That's correct.
On page 22 of the report, there's a heading that's not classified that says, what damage did Snowden cause? And then there's a lot of redacted material. Did that not raise a red flag for you? Or do you not recall?
Edward Snowden broke the law. Like I said, I did not have access to that classified.
Did you seek access to it?
I believe so, yes. This was quite some time ago.
But you still introduced your bill to essentially.
I take very seriously the protection of American civil liberties and our Fourth Amendment rights. If confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I'd make sure that there is no further Snowden-type leak in the future, and that those who have concerns have legal channels to raise those concerns so that we don't violate and release our nation's secrets.
There are about 20 countries in the world that don't.
King, time's expired. Was Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America?
Senator, I will also repeat my answer. He broke the law.
You said earlier that you were offended by a question that my colleague from Kansas asked, which I think was his duty as somebody on this committee to fulfill his responsibility to advise and consent. We're not here to be a rubber stamp for the President of the United States. So let me ask you again, do you believe, as the chairman of this committee believes, as the vast majority of members of our intelligence agencies believe, that Edward Snowden was a traitor to the United States of America?
Senator, if confirmed as
This is when the
Director of
rubber hits
National
the road.
Intelligence,
This is
I will work with you to make sure that there is not
a
another
moment for
Snowden
social
like leak.
media. It's not a moment to propagate theories, conspiracy theories, or attacks on journalism in the United States. This is when you need to answer the questions of the people whose votes you're asking for to be confirmed as the chief intelligence officer of this nation. As my colleague said, this is not about you. It's about the people that serve the intelligence agencies of the United States. Is Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America? That is not a hard question to answer when the stakes are this high.
Senator, as someone who has
your
served
answer,
in
yes or no, is Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America?
As someone who has
I'll go on
worn
to
our
my
uniform
question.
in combat, I understand how critical our national security
Apparently
is.
you don't. Apparently you don't. Let me ask you. I've worked very hard to put your own words here in front of the committee. Not, fake.
I think sometimes she likes to look darker and sometimes she likes to look lighter depending on who she's going to be appearing in front of.
News, not conspiracy theories on the internet, but the actual things that you have said. On February 23rd, 2022, at the very moment that Russian tanks were rolling across the peaceful border of Ukraine for the first time, you tweeted at 11:30 p.m. your time, this war and suffering could have easily been avoided if Biden administration / NATO had simply acknowledged Russia's legitimate security concerns regarding Ukraine's becoming a member of NATO. Did you say that, yes or no?
I believe you're reading my tweet, Senator.
Yes is the answer. A few months later, you said on
She can't even answer that. I believe you're reading it.
Your podcast, and I quoted it, quote, but this regime change war against Russia that the U.S. and NATO are waging via their proxy in Ukraine didn't begin when Putin invaded Ukraine. They had their eyes set on this objective long before that. Did you say that, yes or no?
I believe you're reading my tweet.
Thank
There's
you.
a
The
lot
answer
more.
is yes.
You're quoting a podcast that provided
I'm happy
much
to have
more
a conversation
context.
with the chairman about whether I'm taking anything out of context. I don't think I am. And your answer is yes. Are you aware that your comments about proxy wars and Russia's legitimate security concerns, to quote your own words, are in alignment with what the Russians
How do you get one of these back seats back here? Are these all aides and shit?
have said to justify their invasion of Ukraine?
It's like sitting in the bullpen or something. I don't know.
Senator, I don't pay attention to Russian propaganda. My goal is to speak the truth,
This guy's laid.
regardless of whether you like it or not.
I'll take it. That's fine. You said you are used to speaking truth to power. Yes. I'm shocked to hear you now say that you are agreeing. I'm not shocked because I know you said it. You are agreeing that you basically said that Putin was justified in rolling over the peaceful border of Ukraine, the first time since World War II that a free nation had been invaded by a totalitarian state, and you were there at 11:30 p.m. that night to say that you were with them, not us. And let me tell you something. You say you don't know because you don't read Russian propaganda. Russian state TV then aired.
She just accidentally repeats it all the time. Same as Tim Pool. He doesn't read Russian propaganda. It's just his entire persona is based on it, and he was paid $5 million for it.
Your comments. Did you know that?
Senator, I think you should also quote the statement that I made criticizing Putin for his invasion of Ukraine.
What I would say, Mr. Chairman, with the last, it's up to all of us. We're the Senate. We get to decide whether we're going to confirm this nominee. Obviously, we didn't select this nominee. But can't we do better than somebody who doesn't believe in 702? Can't we believe that somebody who can't answer whether Snowden was a traitor 5 times today, who made excuses for Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, the first time that I'm aware of any American official has done that? I'm questioning her judgment. That's the issue that's at stake here. And as you said, and I totally agree, this is about our intelligence officers. And you cannot, most of what we do here is in secret. This is one of the very few opportunities that you will ever have to have a conversation with this panel in public. And the record is going to be very clear about the position you took with regard to Edward Snowden. And the record is going to be...
It's almost like they don't even give a fuck, right? They'll come in here and lie. They'll refuse to answer. They'll waste time, run out the clock. Because they've got the votes and they've told anybody that don't vote with them, they'll primary them and they'll lose their position.
Very clear about your reaffirmation of the statements you made in the...
If half of them had a hair on their ass, they'd be like, well, then primary me. Like, I'm going to vote the way I feel, not because Elon Musk tweeted I had to. But they don't.
Middle of the night when Russia was invading the free country of Ukraine. And I hope we will take that in consideration when we have this vote.
Your time has expired.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your perspectives on China. How do you view China in your national security role?
Our relationship with China is one that is complex, given how closely our economies are linked. There are a number of challenges and threats that need to be navigated with respect to China, some of which have come up most recently with this very serious cyber exploitation.
What's with the lays? There's another guy over here with the... What's going on? I know you can't see it on the vertical. There you go. Now you can. There's a red lay and a blue lay. Is this some type of... Is it a form of protest?
and Salt Typhoon and Volt Typhoon that seemingly took us by surprise in the compromising of our major
Hawaii support, maybe
companies and an area of significant and great concern.
So some of your past statements that are relevant to China are concerning because I don't think it fully appreciates China's perspective towards the United States. For example, with regard to TikTok. Your past statements have essentially said that requiring domestic ownership of TikTok is a violation of civil liberties, and the national security concerns are complete BS. Can you explain why you have this view on TikTok?
The position that I previously made, obviously not as a member of Congress, as you consider the TikTok legislation, were centered around the protection of Americans' First Amendment rights and the lack of data privacy legislation, frankly, that would apply to TikTok, Facebook, X, all of these different social media applications that collect on us as users of these applications. There were other provisions within that legislation that granted very vague and grandiose authorities to the president on deciding which private companies are or are not.
You know what I think would be hilarious? When the 90-day extension's up and Trump is still demanding that they sell, and not only they sell, but the United States gets paid for some reason. The federal government gets paid as part of the sale too. And he goes to ban TikTok. I wonder how quickly everybody will flip. They're like, oh, you stupid liberal. You better thank Trump if you like TikTok.
Not a national security threat.
So let's talk about China specifically, because this is where I want to make sure you understand what's at stake.
Democrat would be arguable at best.
We've had concerns over many years that when China owns infrastructure, it can manipulate that infrastructure. It can use it for spying. It could use it, turn it on or off. And
yeah, she left the party, but was she ever a Democrat would probably be arguable. Well, was she a Democrat in the last fucking 5 years?
Actually address some of the most recent cyber attacks that we believe China had relevant participation. The challenge is if China owns TikTok, it means they can spy on the United States, on the American people. It can take all the data from our children. It can change the narrative about what people are talking about through their algorithms. If it wants to create misinformation or malign foreign influence, it's very easy. So can you understand why it's so important that we require domestic ownership of TikTok?
I understand the concern, Senator. I would just reiterate some of my concerns that I stated in the past about how this really is an issue about data privacy, because so much of what is collected by all of these, even U.S.-owned companies, can be sold to any country.
I get it.
Yeah, probably farther than that, 10 years.
It's a bigger issue for Congress to wrestle, and I am all in for that conversation. But I want you to appreciate China. What is your view with regard to Taiwan? Do you think it is something that your intelligence efforts will understand how important our relationship is with Taiwan, specifically on chips manufacturing? I think President Trump has most recently decided to have a 100% tariff on all chips from Taiwan. And your statements, particularly about the bill we passed, the CHIPS Act, to make sure that domestic production is invested in, and so that we have that supply chain, and so we have that national security. But your public statements about the CHIPS Act have been very negative and don't seem to appreciate how important that independence is for our national security, to be beholden to China, to be beholden to Taiwan, to be in a place where we can't do our own national intelligence.
Yes, Senator.
I think she made the announcement like in 2021, 2022 that she was leaving the Democratic Party. Whatever the fuck that means.
I fully support the investment in building and strengthening our own domestic capabilities. If I recall, that legislation had a lot of other provisions in it that had nothing to do with the production of our own capability, and I felt were a distraction away from and a potential obstacle towards achieving that.
So you will recommend to the president that we continue to invest in the semiconductor industry in the United States for our own independence as well as our own national security?
Yes, Senator, and I would base my recommendations on a number of all of these issues, if confirmed as DNI, based on the full assessment of the intelligence.
Dude, this semiconductor shit is such a big issue, especially with China's planned invasion of Taiwan is coming.
Pictures that the president understands the ramifications and the potential cost towards any one of these policy positions that he will make and all of you will make.
And last, I want to return to the Soleimani strike. At the time, you said it was illegal, that President Trump did was illegal, would cause very significant problems down the line. What is your position on that strike, and will you be able to advise the president in future issues with regard to national security?
Those broader issues that I raised with regard to war powers, I have been consistent on. I didn't have access to all of the information behind that strike at the time, and my concerns were that may be an escalatory action. President Trump was right. There was no escalation beyond that, and his policies towards Iran turned out to be very effective for our own national security.
Do you disagree with the president taking away the protection for those who are now being targeted in retaliation for the Soleimani strike, such as previous Secretary Pompeo?
Senator, I can't answer that without being able to look at the intelligence assessment and the threat assessment for that or other decisions.
Thank you, Senator Gillibrand.
You're nominated to lead and coordinate across the intelligence community's numerous sources of collection and analytic capabilities. In a few sentences, can you describe how you make assessments and how you're going to sift through all this intelligence and make careful and thoughtful conclusions?
Yes, Senator, there are great professionals who work within the intelligence community. I I will build a strong team around me as they present the intelligence reporting to provide to the president through the president's daily brief and to respond to issues and concerns that this body has. I will welcome dissenting voices to be able to make sure that this information intelligence is thoroughly vetted prior to presenting it and make sure that the truth is reported, whether that truth is convenient or not.
Well, thank you, Colonel Gabbard, and I appreciate that. The president and others are going to rely on that. I want to discuss such an assessment made by the IC. For years, the U.S. analyzed evidence of numerous chemical weapons attacks in Syria. Eventually, we were able to assess that Bashar al-Assad was responsible for a number of these attacks that slaughtered his own civilians. Do you accept the conclusion broadly that Assad used chemical weapons against Syrians?
Yes, and I'm on the record for years of agreeing with that broad assessment.
Thank you. Among the attacks the U.S. assessed Assad was responsible for, two that occurred in Douma and Khan Sheikhoun in Syria. As a member of Congress and as a presidential candidate, and as recently as this month, in your written responses to this committee, you have cast doubt on the assessment that Assad is culpable in these two attacks. Is that still your position?
Senator, I raised those questions given conflicting information and evidence that was presented at that time.
Well, thank you. So to help inform the public, the Trump administration released declassified intelligence in 2017 and again in 2018, showing how experts analyzed multiple types of evidence, satellite imagery, medical experts' witnesses, describing sources, and showing the reasoning used to determine Assad's culpability in using these chemical weapons, including in Douma.
Did you hear the new press secretary when they asked if they're going to celebrate Black History Month?
And Khan Sheikhoun in these attacks, the ones that you question. I have two documents I want to submit for the record, Mr. Chairman.
She basically said all lives matter.
Admitted. Thank you. Were you aware of the declassified assessments, the one I referenced?
Yes, I was.
And as a member of the House Armed Services Committee and the Foreign Affairs Committee, did you take time to review these?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And can you explain to me then?
She said, we'll continue to celebrate the achievements of all Americans, regardless of skin color.
Why you doubted the intelligence community's conclusions in these two cases, Douma and Khan Sheikhoun, but not the others, and please be specific.
These two cases were being looked at as to be used as a pretext for a major military movement, and my fear was a repeat of the deployment of another 500,000 soldiers like we saw in Iraq towards what was the Obama administration's goal, which was regime change in Syria. The question specifically that I raised around these two came about because there were two reasons. One, that assessment was made with high confidence and low information. The information that they had came from those on the ground in an al-Qaeda controlled area and therefore were al-Qaeda linked sources. And there was conflicting information that came from the UN's Office on the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons Inspectors, as well as an MIT professor, Ted Postel,
So I want to talk about him for a second. So did you look into?
Yeah, I don't think it's funny. I think it's weird that they made the biggest flip to fucking, like, they dropped everything that they claimed they believed in to fucking get a job.
His credentials, yes or no?
Yes.
And were you aware of his appearances on Russian Today, which is used by the Russians to disseminate government-approved messages?
No.
Were you aware Postal relied on a chemistry student with a record of defending the Assad regime?
At that time, I was not. I have been made aware since.
Do you consider this person or these two individuals now, do you consider them a better source for the chemistry of sarin gas than the U.S. intelligence community?
I assess that at the time, the information, I don't know the second person you're referring to, but MIT professor Ted Postel and the inspectors of the OPCW provided some credible questions that deserved examination.
Okay, thank you. Did you attempt to weigh Postel's claims against the significant evidence and assessments already conducted by the IC?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. So here's my concern here, Colonel. When we began this, you described a thoughtful approach to analyzing intelligence and reaching conclusions. This is what we expect of our profession.
Yeah, because it's a Russian, right? It was that they were propped up by a Russian regime.
But we just kind of walked through how you came to question Assad's use of chemical weapons in these two cases with a different approach. And I don't reject seeking out differing viewpoints. We need to do that. But you started from a place of doubting the conclusions of the U.S. intelligence community, and then you sought out information that confirmed your viewpoint. That led you to embrace the opinions of two individuals that I think we disagree on this. You think they had expertise, I do not, and others do not. But these individuals were sympathetic to Russia and the Assad regime. It also led you to minimize or discount the overwhelmingly information that contradicted your viewpoint, including the expert assessments of our own intelligence community. And they don't get it right 100% of the time. I get that. But what I have seen makes it clear that at the same time that you were skeptical of our intelligence community's assessments, you would not apply the same skepticism to information that came from sympathizers of Russia and Assad. And I think that's something that we should all be concerned about. When Russia was denying Assad's use of chemical weapons, they accused the U.S. of supporting terrorists. This is a line that Putin used frequently during the Syrian civil war as he supported Assad. Syrian officials made similar comments. They did it repeatedly. They did it in public. They did it at the United Nations. In 2016, you gave an interview in which you said, and this is a quote, "The U.S. is providing direct and indirect support to terrorist groups in order to overthrow the Syrian government." And in 2019, on the Democratic presidential debate stage, you said of President Trump, this is a quote, "This current president is continuing to betray us. We were supposed to be going after al-Qaeda, but over years now, not only have we not gone after al-Qaeda, our president is supporting al-Qaeda." So I'm interested to hear, what was your goal in saying these things? And did you consider, before saying them, the motives of Iran and Russia, what their motives might have been before making these claims?
Senator, as someone who enlisted in the military specifically because of al-Qaeda's terrorist attack on 9/11 and committing myself and my life to doing what I could to defeat these terrorists, it was shocking and a betrayal to me and every person who was killed on 9/11, their families and my brothers and sisters in uniform. When as a member of Congress, I learned about President Obama's dual programs that he had begun really to overthrow the regime of Syria, and being willing to, through the CIA's Timber Sycamore program that has now been made public, of working with and arming and equipping al-Qaeda in an effort to overthrow that regime, starting yet another regime change war in the Middle East. DOD train and equip program, again, begun under President Obama, is widely been known, looked at and studied, that ultimately resulted in over $500 million being used to train who they called moderate rebels, but were actually fighters working with and aligned with al-Qaeda's affiliate on the ground in Syria, all to move forward with their regime change and not acknowledging what was obvious at the time and what has unfortunately borne true, which was that a regime change war in Syria, much like the regime change wars in Iraq, the toppling of Gaddafi and Mubarak, while these are all dictators, would likely result in the rise of Islamist extremists like
Oh yeah, she's conspiracy baits her thing.
Al-Qaeda taking power. I shed no tears for the fall of the Assad regime, but today we have an Islamist extremist who is now in charge of Syria, as I said, who danced on the streets to celebrate the 9/11 attack, who ruled over Idlib with an Islamist extremist governance, and who has already begun to persecute and kill and arrest religious minorities like Christians in Syria.
I understand.
Why that should be acceptable to anyone is beyond me. It is certainly not in our interest.
I appreciate your answer, and thank you. My concern has to do with the tendency to repeat Russian and Syrian, and even in some cases, I think we'll get into in the closed session, Iranian information, and to discount what comes from our intelligence community.
Senator, every American deserves to know that people in our own government were providing support to our sworn enemy, al-Qaeda. That should not be acceptable by anyone.
Thank you, Senator Kelly McScabbard. In conclusion, Senator Warner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, one of the things I love about this committee, and I know folks who are here from McScabbard may not fully, but this has always been a bipartisan committee. And you know, my friend Richard Burr, who said we always kind of follow the truth. One of the things I was always proud of the very challenging Russian investigation was, you know, people would come in, they didn't know whether the staffer was a Democrat or Republican, because we were all looking out for the same thing. McScabbard, I support and commend you for your service. But we have heard this morning, taking some individuals' advice on chemical attacks, not taking the American intelligence community that, as we subsequently discovered, had iffy ties, not enough due diligence. We heard this morning on your trip to Lebanon that you weren't fully aware that the folks who originally paid for the trip had these relations and ties to the Syrian party. I know I've asked you, and I understand on the trip that you said you met with Shia religious figures, and you didn't know who they were. I can understand that, although I can't imagine Shia religious figures that in the Bekaa Valley that didn't have ties to Hezbollah. We can have a difference of opinion on TikTok. Chairman and I feel very strongly that it is a national security threat. On 702, I'm candidly confused. I thought you answered Senator Wyden, you're in favor of a warrant. Senator Cornyn, I thought you backed off of that. And then on Edward Snowden, you won't back off of Brave. You won't back off your legislation. You won't call him a traitor. And I think, again, about this is being watched by our allies around the world. I think RT's been tweeting about it today, blasting me. And the men and women of the intelligence community. I don't know how they're going to have confidence that if under your leadership, if somebody else stepped out, that you wouldn't take the same position that you've not walked away from on Mr. Snowden. So I guess my last question, this is one I think was in some of the press, and I believe you and your husband took a trip to Rome last summer, and you know, I'm not talking about the conference. I think you didn't ask who paid for the trip. I just want to get this off the record right now. Not if you and your husband reimbursed, but did you?
Yeah, it's obviously it's a compilation of it. It's not just the Republicans glazing her. It's just the hard questions.
There was a nonprofit organization that was coordinating with the Vatican to set up this meeting that was centered around peace and security interests in the Western Hemisphere. That paid for the trip.
So you didn't understand your trip was paid for by a gentleman named Pierre Louvarier and the Clementi Foundation?
The nonprofit, my understanding, was paid for the trip.
Mr. Louvarier has enormous ties to Konstantin Malovov. I'm mispronouncing his name, but who is somebody that America has sanctioned. I'm sure we can get into this in the classified hearing, but again, the due diligence that's required before you take these trips or make these assumptions is something that I find.
It's to figure out who the fuck's paying for it, who you're going to be meeting, and what precedent you're setting by doing it.
Troubling.
You're retarded. I don't know what to tell you. We've explained it almost 4 different ways now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Patel, I think you know that I have great respect for the men and women of the FBI, their mission, fidelity.
We've switched over to Cash Patel, by the way.
Bravery, integrity. I believe they deserve a director who respects their work and sacrifices, and they deserve a director who's focused on their mission. This is not about bingo cards or games. This is not about revenge. This is about the safety of our country and the people that work in the FBI. And the FBI runs on facts, it runs on truth. Truth matters, and without truth, the whole system breaks down. You said that Donald Trump has every right to tell the world that in 2020, 2016, and every other election in between was rigged by our government because they were. Yes or no, did you say that?
I don't have that statement in front of me. But
okay, that was...
Yes, you did.
From August 27th, 2023.
All the elections are rigged.
Thrive Time show. I'll put it on the record. These claims made in that statement were rejected by courts, including by Republican judges. Is that correct?
I don't have enough of the facts in front of me to make that assessment.
I will put that statement on the record, but I think everyone in this committee, including the Republican members, knows that these statements were rejected by courts. You were asked about the police officers in the Capitol who testified in the January 6 hearings, and you accused them of lying. Is that correct or not correct?
I don't think that's accurate.
Okay, Joe Peck podcast.
He's lying.
March 2024.
100% lying.
On the record. I was there. The police officers were heroes that day.
Yes.
Did you post on your personal social media?
Now he says yes, the police officers were heroes that day. Yes. He sneaks in a yes there after he said they were fucking lying and setting up Trump supporters.
2024, we'll put it on the record.
He's worse than Tulsi. He has to lie about everything, right? He's made the whole conspiracy circuit. He's fucking claimed some wild shit while traveling around.
I was there. The police officers were heroes that day.
Yes.
Did you post on your personal social media account in May of 2024, January 6th, never an insurrection, cowards in uniforms exposed. They broke the chain of command.
Cowards in uniforms exposed. Never an insurrection. Cowards in uniforms exposed.
I believe you're referencing a post that was shown in part earlier. I don't have it in front of me.
You posted it, and it was on your account, and we will again put that out there once more.
Go watch the Republican glazing all you want. I want to see them ask tough questions. These are not videos that I'm fucking editing. It's someone else's video.
As we go on, I don't want to lose any more time on this, but every one of these, there's a record of it, and you haven't answered. You promoted a COVID vaccine, reversal, or detox supplement. One scientist said, I quote, none of these substances in any form would minimize...
Who do you think is more appropriate for this job, you or Jesus?
Side effects from a COVID-19 vaccine.
I get you guys confused sometimes. I'm good.
On innocent people. Did you perform clinical trials before you made that claim?
I'm not a doctor, so no.
But vaccine, reversal, or detox supplement. One scientist said, I quote, none of these substances answered.
He was on the Stu Peters show 8 times when Stu Peters was telling people that they were giving people COVID through snake venom in water treatment plants.
Once more, as we go on, I don't want to lose any more time on this, but every one of these, there's a record of it, and you haven't answered. You promoted a COVID vaccine, reversal, or detox supplement. One scientist said, I quote, none of these substances in any form would minimize side effects from a COVID-19 vaccine. That is preying on innocent people. Did you perform clinical trials before you made that claim?
I'm not a doctor, so no.
But you did promote this supplement and told people that it would reverse or mitigate the side effects from COVID vaccine.
Did I give people an opportunity to make an independent choice for what's best for their families? Yes.
You did that last.
He sells a fucking vaccine side effect remedy.
Here, correct?
I don't have it in front of me again, Senator.
Mr. Patel, the FBI tackles some of the most complex threats that we face: terrorists, hostile foreign powers, violent gangs, fentanyl, criminal organizations. Your mission, though, has been to go after people. I've looked at it. I've read this stuff. Yes or no? When Trump wins, did you say this? When Trump wins in 2024 and is in power in 2025, we can prosecute them, referring to Justice Department officials.
He literally has a list, like a revenge list of people, and he showed it on the show. Like people that he thinks that they should come after once Trump wins.
For an actual RICO statute violation, for criminally organizing the United States government to break the law to rig presidential elections. Did you say that? Yes, sir.
Yes. He would shut down the FBI headquarters and turn it into a museum to the deep state. That's another statement he makes.
Again, Senator, you're reading a partial statement, so I'm unable to fully respond.
Okay, again, we'll put it on the record. X22 report podcast 20.
Oh my God, he went on X22.
I'll get you the date, about a year ago. One of the names on your list was Bill Barr. Chairman Grassley has called him one of the most capable cabinet officials I've ever been able to vote for. Senator Graham has said, I have nothing but total respect and admiration for the job.
I think Bill Barr tried to ride the line of trying to be an appointee for the president and support his actions, but not compromising yourself or his morals, or just lying outright.
Job done by William Barr as Attorney General of the United States. Is Bill Barr on your list of whatever you want to call them, been referred to as an enemies list. You called him deep state after serving his country as the Attorney General of the United States. Is he on your list because of a personal vendetta?
Well, it's not whatever we want to call it, Senator. With all due respect, it's not an enemies list. That is a total mischaracterization.
I asked you, I actually used the words you used for the list, which was deep state, right? That's what you put at the
It is a
top.
glossary
Against
in
the
the
Attorney
back.
General of the United States. Is it because of a personal vendetta that he's on the list? You're under oath.
I have no personal vendetta against him.
Okay, he said about you, you would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the Bureau. That was actually in writing in his book. He had virtually, about you, no experience that would qualify you to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency, and that your appointment, as noted by Senator Durbin as Deputy Director to the FBI, would happen over his dead body. Is it? Yes or no, why you would put him on a list of deep state as a former
over my dead body.
Attorney General Trump, Attorney General of the United States, because he wouldn't break the law for Donald Trump. Is that why?
Absolutely not.
As you know, he repeatedly told the president in no uncertain terms that he did not see evidence.
Ask him why he's on your list.
Of fraud that would have affected the outcome of the election. Did you say in February of 2021 that the election stuff was never my job and I stayed out of that stuff?
Again, I don't know what comment you're referring to, but I'm sure you're reading a piece of something.
You said it on Pushback on a podcast. Is it true, though, that in December of 2020, you reached out to the Trump acting Deputy Attorney General and asked him to investigate a conspiracy theory claiming that people in Italy had used military technology and satellites to remotely tamper with voting machines in the U.S. and switch votes?
That's right. The Italian satellite theory.
For Trump, from Trump to Biden. Is that true?
What was the date?
That was out of December of 2020.
I was Chief of Staff to the Department of Defense, so I don't believe that's accurate anyway.
Okay, that came out of testimony before Congress. I will give it to you. Have you referred to the media as the most powerful enemy of the United States that they have ever seen? Is that right?
Again, you're reading a quote. I take you're reading it accurately.
22324. You said we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens who helped Joe Biden rig the elections. We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. Is that something you said?
That's a partial statement of what I said.
Steve Bannon's podcast. You also said you would put the entire fake news mafia
on with Steve Bannon
on your list. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
I don't have that in front of me.
Benny Johnson podcast 82123. You have said that the FBI.
Benny Johnson, another guy who took millions of dollars from Russia.
Including today, you said that they remain utterly corrupt. This is an agency with agents who have taken down terrorists, taken down bank robbers, taken down crime. And you wrote that the FBI has become so thoroughly compromised that it will remain a threat to the people unless drastic measures are taken. Do you know that under Chris...
He might as well just say yes. I mean, they've got the videos, they've got the transcripts. He might as well just say yes. At least stand by it. Don't run around for 4 fucking years making money hand over fist, spreading conspiracy theories, then show up and be like, maybe that's a partial statement. Maybe I don't know. I think I was working for the government then. I don't think so. I don't know.
Trey's leadership. He took over at a very difficult time. We all know that, appointed by President Trump, during his tenure.
At least Phil, when he was under oath, he still pretended to be a spy.
Applications to the FBI has in fact tripled. Do you think people would be applying to that agency, like in those numbers, if they thought it was so corrupt?
The American public's trust in it is at 40%. That's an all-time low.
Did you say that the FBI headquarters should be shut down and reopened as a museum of the deep state?
Mr. Chairman, are we allowed to go an extra time?
Let's see. You got.
He doesn't want to answer this one, right? He does not want to answer this one. He's like, I don't know. We have extra time. Can we do this or no? This is his. The FBI headquarters should be shut down and turned into a museum of the deep state. Instead, what he's going to change his answer to is, I think those agents should be out being police officers. He doesn't want to answer this one at all.
FBI headquarters should be shut down and reopened as a museum of the deep state?
Mr. Chairman, are we allowed to go an extra time?
Let's see. You got.
We all did, Jizzy. I wouldn't worry too much about it. We all did. Dude, I used to watch Steven Crowder. I used to watch a bunch of those things until I started fact-checking these people, and they're just fucking lying and making shit up.
You get a second round. Before I call on Senator
Could he just answer the question if he said that the FBI headquarters, where they investigate cybercrime and terrorism, should be shut down and open as a deep state, as a museum? Did he say that the headquarters should be shut down?
Mr. Chair.
I deserve an answer to that question. He is asking to be head of the FBI, and he said that their headquarters should be shut down.
Mr. Chair, parliamentary inquiry. You got anything you want to say, Mr. Patel, before I go on to Senator Lee?
Simply this. If the best attacks on me are going to be false accusations and grotesque mischaracterizations, the only thing this body is doing is defeating the credibility of the men and women at the FBI. I stood with them here in this country.
Okay. If they have a transcript of the words you said and they have the video of the words you said, how is that an attack and mischaracterization? Get off your fucking soapbox. They're literally just repeating the words you said and asking you if you said it.
And grotesque mischaracterizations, the only thing this body is doing is defeating the credibility of the men and women at the FBI. I stood with them here in this country. In every theater of war we have, I was on the ground in service of this nation. And any accusations leveled against me that I would somehow put political bias before the Constitution are grotesquely unfair. And I will have you reminded that I have been endorsed
Except you spent 4 years making the rounds saying that you would do that.
300,000 law enforcement officers to become the next director of the FBI. Let's ask them.
Mr. Chairman, I am quoting his own words from September of 2024. It is his own words. It is not some conspiracy.
And it's just from a few months ago, right? It's from September. That if he gets confirmed, he's going to shut it down and make a museum to the deep state.
Is what Mr. Patel actually said himself. Facts matter.
You forget that you had 3 minutes in the next round to say what you just said.
Okay, I'll say them again.
Okay. Before I call Lee.
Mr. Chair, just parliamentary inquiry, and it was on time. It wasn't disputing any of the debate, but I intend to keep to my 7 minutes, and I appreciate you keeping everyone to it. If we go over, can we have that decrement against the time in the second round? If a member goes over, that was actually 10 minutes, Mr. Chair.
I'm not sure that I want to. Sometimes it's faster to get things done here, just letting people shout than it does to shut them up.
Mr. Chairman, you're a wise man, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before we go to Lee.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, what do you want?
They ought to do like a judge, right? The head ought to say, look, you've been asked a direct question. We'd appreciate an answer in its shortest form. If you can do it in yes or no, do it in yes or no. If you can't, we need to fucking limit it to, 10, 15 seconds.
I love this guy.
Before we go to Lee.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, what do you want?
I love this guy. Mr. Chairman, I'm like Senator Tillis. I mean, if we're going to start this, I want an extra 3 minutes.
Well,
now, my friend Senator Klobuchar,
not
3 minutes over.
So, here what you're saying is the chairman wasn't a very good chairman by not shutting her up. But I've gone through this before, and I think I know how to handle it. And
I think you're a star-spangled awesome chairman. I just want to say that for the record. But if you're going to let somebody over there go 3 minutes over, I want my extra 3 minutes.
Well, let's see if it's abused by anybody else before we make that decision.
I'm just telling you, I'm going to abuse it.
Well, I'm not going to let you abuse it.
You're a good man, Mr. Chairman.
Before I go to Lee, I want to put a statement in the record from 56 former FBI agents wrote to this committee to support this nominee. Quote, never has the FBI faced such an urgent and compelling need for comprehensive reform as it does today. Mr. Patel has proven he possesses the breadth of experience required to address these challenges. His leadership, expertise, and vision make him unique.
If you don't think somebody could find 76 people to fucking sign for them, of course they can, right? You can find one dentist that doesn't agree with brushing your teeth.
Qualified to guide the FBI
out of every 10.
A pivotal moment. For these reasons, we stand in full support of Kash Patel's nomination.
73 former and current FBI agents or something.
Any objection? So ordered.
Jesus Christ.
Senator Schiff.
Mr. Patel, early in this hearing, Senator Durbin asked you about the January 6th choir of inmates whose song you promoted, and here's what you said. I did not have anything to do.
This is okay. So he promoted and produced, at least by his own claim, the January 6th choir, which was like, apparently they had this story that the January 6th people that locked up in Washington would sing the national anthem every night or something. So they went and recorded tracks with them, and they took the funds that were raised from that and paid bills of their wives and set up college funds for the kids of the insurrectionists, right? He produced it. He sold it. He peddled it. He made social media posts about where the money was going, who they were, the political prisoners locked up after the fake insurrection, blah, blah. And now he's going to be like, I don't know who was on that. I don't know who did that. I have no idea who the people singing were. I don't know.
With the recording. I did not have anything to do with the recording. Do you stand by that testimony, Mr. Patel?
Senator, what I said was I didn't do the recording.
You said you didn't have anything to do with the recording, which is interesting because here's what you told Steve Bannon on his podcast. So what we thought would be cool is if we captured that audio and then, of course, had the greatest president, President Donald J. Trump, recite the Pledge of Allegiance, then we went to a studio and recorded it, mastered it, digitized it, and put it out as a song now releasing exclusively on the War Room. We. If you had nothing to do with it, Mr. Patel, why did you tell Steve Bannon and all his listeners that you did?
That's why it says we, as you highlighted.
Yeah, and you're part of the we, right? When you say we.
You can't say we and then say I have nothing to do with it.
That includes you, doesn't it, Mr. Patel?
Not in every instance.
Well, that's new. So when you said we, you didn't really mean you. Is that your testimony?
Not unless you have a new definition for the word we.
Oh, okay. I always thought we included the person who pronounced the word, but maybe not. Well, you also...
It absolutely does.
Also said this, Mr. Patel. We were able to capture the recording thanks to their courageous singing, and we were able to take it to a studio. So let me ask you, Mr. Patel, after saying we took it to a studio, did you take it to a studio?
Me personally, no.
After you said that we digitized and recorded it and all that, did you take it to a studio and digitize and record it?
Me personally, no.
Okay, so you were lying to Steve Bannon and his audience. Is that what you're saying?
No, I was using the proverbial we appropriately.
That's the royal we. Oh, I see. And so you certainly promoted the hell out of it, though, didn't you?
I don't know what that means, but I promoted the heck out of raising money for families in need.
With promotions on social media?
The proverbial we is we to refer to a group that includes the speaker or writer and the audience or reader. So if I said we ran Fat Man Prepper off the internet, that would be me and you guys, right? The listener, the audience, whatever, right? It includes the speaker. So even the proverbial we it still includes him. The royal we would be you and or your country, right?
And saying you were going to get this to #1 on the billboards, right, Mr. Patel?
I think it did.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Isn't that great? People who violently attack police have a #1 song thanks to you, Mr. Patel. That's something to be really proud of. Now, you claim, Mr. Patel, you didn't know about any of these people in the choir. Is that right?
I did not know about the violent offenders, and I did not participate in any of the violence in and around January 6th.
Tell me, Mr. Patel, what due diligence did you do to find out who was in the choir before you promoted their beautiful music? These people who assaulted law enforcement. What due diligence did you do?
Senator, I didn't record it myself.
So you did no due diligence before you promoted this song by these violent felons. Is that what you're telling us?
Senator, I did not record that.
He doesn't even believe that any of them should be charged, that it was, according to him, his own statements, it was all a setup. The police are criminals in uniform that set these beautiful patriots up. Like, so why would it matter that some of them are accused of being violent? It doesn't until now, right?
Myself.
So you're being considered for director.
He can't lie to these people. They were there, right? They were the people that had to be fucking evacuated.
FBI. And here you did no diligence to find out whether people you were associating with now the President of the United States in song were convicted of attacking police officers. Is that who we want running the FBI? I want you to turn around. There are Capitol Police officers behind you. They're guarding us. Take a look at them right now. Turn around.
I'm looking at you. You're talking to me.
No, look at them. I want you to look at them if you can, if you have the courage to look them in the eye, Mr. Patel, and tell them you're proud of what you did. Tell them you're proud that you raised money off of people that assaulted their colleagues.
He doesn't.
That pepper sprayed them. That
Spoiler.
Polls. Tell them you're proud of what you did, Mr. Patel.
You know, before Trump ran, if someone lied like this, they would never get anyone to let them through. Yeah. And it was like, there's a video that I think shows the way politics have changed, where that lady is like, I don't trust Obama. And John McCain is like, well, you know, I disagree with him. She's like, well, I've read a lot, and he's one of them Arabs. And he's like, no. He takes the microphone. He's like, no, he's not. He's a guy I disagree with politically. He's a guy I disagree with, you know, who would run the country. But he's certainly he's an American, right? He's not from Kenya. He's not like, that's the way it used to be. But Trump has thrown this, we fucking hate everybody, and his followers are locking them up and having them goddamn hung at like, it's just wild the way it's changed in the era of Trump.
Right there.
And probably changed forever. At least I don't see whoever picks up the torch to run next for the Republicans, I don't see them being extremely different from Trump. I don't see them reverting back, right? I don't see them because that's not how you win now. That's not how you win now.
Regarding you today, tell them how proud you are.
That's an abject lie, and you know it. I've never, ever accepted violence against law enforcement. I've worked with these men and women, as you know,
you
my entire
glorified it
life,
in song.
and I did not make a single dime out of it.
You glorified it in song.
Well, let me.
How about you ask them if I have their backs, and let's see about that
answer. Let me ask you this, Mr. Patel. Let me ask you this. If an FBI director promoted a song of people who sprayed pepper spray in the face of an FBI agent, would you say they were fit to be director?
Mr. Schiff?
Yes or no? Would they be fit to be director?
I am fit to be the director of the FBI.
If you were the
But he can't answer the hypothetical.
FBI director and you promoted a song to someone who beat an FBI agent with a pole, would you say you were fit to be FBI director?
Mr. Schiff, I am fit to be FBI director based on my 16 years of
government service. And yet you did all these things, Mr. Patel. You can say, oh, I support law enforcement. I decry violence against law enforcement. You could say all that. It's what you did, Mr. Patel, that matters. It's what you did that matters. Well, let me ask you about something else that you did, Mr. Patel. Did you claim that Donald Trump declassified all the documents?
Oh, Romney, he's probably in Gitmo.
In what proceeding?
To the public, ever. Did you tell anyone that Donald Trump declassified all the documents at Mar-a-Lago?
From publicly available information, President Trump issued a declassification order on a variety of materials.
No, I'm just asking you, did you tell the public, did you tell anyone, did you make the claim that Donald Trump...
He did. He made the claim that he declassified everything before he left office or something.
Declassified those hundreds of classified documents that were Mar-a-Lago. Did you make that claim publicly?
From my best of my recollection, I said President Trump issued a declassification order to a large number of documents.
Yeah, and were you present when he declassified all the Mar-a-Lago documents?
Senator, I'm not saying he declassified all the Mar-a-Lago documents. I said President Trump declassified a large number of documents, and I would hope this committee and the rest of Congress would want to get those documents to the American people.
Mr. Patel, before a president or anyone declassified documents, wouldn't you want to know whether making the public would cause sources to be killed? Wouldn't you want to know that before you just declare they're all declassified? Wouldn't that be the responsible thing for a president to do?
It was a responsible thing for us to do. That's why they declassified the Nunes memo.
And did Donald Trump
and no one died.
And did Donald Trump ever ask any of the agencies who produced those documents whether declassifying them would put people's lives at risk? Did he ever do that, to your knowledge, Kash Patel?
I don't know that he didn't. Do you?
No, that's the problem, isn't it? That's the problem, isn't it? So let me just ask, Mr. Chairman, if you would, Mr. Patel has said he has no problem. He would support the release of his grand jury testimony in that case. I would ask you, Mr. Chairman, ranking member, to join me in requesting, with Mr. Patel's approval, the release of those grand jury transcripts. And I would also ask Mr. Patel whether you support the release of Volume 2 as it pertains to you of the special counsel's report. Any reference to you in the report, to your truthfulness, will you support the release to this committee of those sections of Volume 2 of special counsel's report?
I support following the law and providing whatever information the law requires.
Well, you said to the Wall Street Journal that
what the law requires.
You support transparency. Here's your chance, Mr. Patel. So you support release of that to this committee, yes or no?
Your time's up.
Whatever's required. He's not going to answer that one either, right? I support whatever the law's required, but he could voluntarily release that, right? He could voluntarily. No, it's not required by law. I don't think I'll answer. His time's up.
Before I call on Senator Tillis, I have letters here from law enforcement groups representing 310,000.
Fuck Kash Patel. Like, Hegseth, Kash Patel are probably my least favorite. RFK Jr. is going to be so bad. I don't like any of them, right? But fuck Kash Patel, dude.
Thousand officers supporting Mr. Patel's nomination. And
see Senator Booker.
Senator Booker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm struggling with a bit of the flu here, but thought it was really important to come.
Everybody's got flu.
Yeah, it's been pretty rough, but I appreciate the time. And Mr. Patel, if I can jump right in, 12 prosecutors, career prosecutors, were involved in an investigation and prosecuting the cases against President Trump and were recently fired. Some of those that were involved in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. Do you know who Brett Reynolds is?
Maybe, but it doesn't ring a bell at this point.
You're under oath. You have no recollection of who Brett Reynolds is?
You could provide me with a little more context. I could possibly remember.
Are you aware of any plans or discussions to punish in any way, including termination, FBI agents or personnel associated with Trump investigations?
Senator, just to be clear, I did not participate in any of those DOJ
Sir,
decisions.
That's a yes or no question. Are you aware of any plans or discussions to punish in any way, including termination, FBI agents or personnel associated with Trump investigations?
I'm not aware of that, Senator.
There is no evidence of wrongdoing by FBI employees involved in these investigations. If you do pursue investigations of those involved, will you commit to using standard processes, including a standard review by the FBI Inspections Division and the Inspector General?
Senator, I will honor all those review processes.
You will honor those review processes?
Yes, Senator.
If these are actions that the FBI employees, if there are actions against FBI employees that do not follow those standards process that happen before you get in, will you commit to reversing any decision prior to your arrival so that those standard processes and a standard review by the FBI Inspections Division will take place?
I don't know what's going on right now over there, but I'm committed to you, Senator, and your colleagues that I will honor the internal review process of the FBI.
Have you made any commitments to anyone about pursuing any investigations or targets if you are FBI director?
Only violent criminals and terrorists.
Have you had any conversations with anyone on the transition team about pursuing any investigations or targets?
Only following the Constitution.
Again, are you certain?
That I've told people on the
Are you certain? Have you had any conversations with anyone on the transition team?
He's asking if he's made promises like, okay, well, when I get confirmed, I'll definitely go after that guy because he came after Trump or Trump don't like him or whatever.
About pursuing any investigations or targets?
Senator, to the best of my recollection, I've only said I will use the Constitution.
Have you discussed specific investigations or targets you would pursue as FBI director with the President of the United States?
Senator, to the best of my recollection, no.
Are you certain?
To the best of my recollection, no.
According to public reports, you were subpoenaed by the federal prosecutors to testify as a witness before the grand jury investigation investigating the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. And you testified before the grand jury, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you were before the grand jury, you pled the fifth on the basis of self-incrimination, correct?
I utilized my constitutional rights during that process with the advice and consent of counsel and appeared before that grand jury.
I will take that as a yes. And you are familiar...
He had to plead the fifth when he was brought in, like...
Imagine with Section 6002 of Title 18.
Off the top of my head, Senator, not...
Well, Section 6002 is the immunity statute. Whenever a witness refuses to testify or provide other information before a grand jury based upon the privilege against self-incrimination, the court can order the witness to testify. The witness must comply with the order, but they receive immunity, which means that no testimony or any other information provided before the grand jury can be used against them in any criminal proceeding. You were compelled to testify as a witness in the Mar-a-Lago classified document case. Did you participate in any criminal conduct involved?
That's the immunity clause, right? So you can plead the fifth, but then they can compel your testimony by saying, okay, well, you got immunity for anything you're going to testify against, but we still need your testimony.
In that case.
Involved in which, the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case?
Yes.
No, I testified through compulsion by court order.
You received immunity for providing information that was self-incriminating. Do you remember the name of the prosecutor who questioned you?
There were multiple, Senator. I do not.
Was it one of the people, were any of them people that were fired this past week?
I have no idea, Senator.
Are you certain? You're under oath.
I'm aware that I'm under oath, Senator, and I have no idea, and I did not participate in the removal of any DOJ prosecutor.
What was the information you provided that you received immunity for?
Senator, I would love my grand jury testimony to be released, but as you know, that grand jury testimony has been sealed by the Department of Justice, and I'm not allowed to discuss it here.
Well, I find it troubling that you do not know the law here. And let me tell you what the law is. Rule 6 governs grand jury proceedings. Under Rule 6E, grand jurors, court reporters, and prosecutors are bound to secrecy. But witnesses are not bound by secrecy. You were a witness in the classified documents case. You are not bound by secrecy. You can tell us everything that happened in that room and everything you testified about. I'll ask you again, what information did you provide to the grand jury?
In this, we are agreement, Senator. Get my grand jury testimony. I want it made public. I asked the Department of Justice to make it public, and they refused to do so.
There's no legal bound.
He's not legally bound. Even if the documents are bound, he's not legally bound.
You telling us right now what you testified to?
When I asked for my transcript to be released,
sir, did you or did you not commit a crime?
Senator, I did not commit a crime.
Then why won't you tell us what you testified to?
Because it occurred over the course of 3 weeks. I don't have the ability to recall everything I testified to, but I'm asking you to put my transcript down. Did you testify to
witnessing the President of the United States declassifying documents?
Senator, what I testified to is best captured by that transcript.
So you're not willing to tell Congress, after making many pledges today about...
He could give a fucking overview, right? He could say, well, we testified about declassifying documents, we testified about document storage, testified about...
transparency, whether or not you testified to witnessing the President of the United States declassify documents. In the name of all the values you have said today, did you or did you not testify to witnessing the President of the United States declassify documents?
I testified accordingly and under oath, and I encourage you to get that transcript.
And by the law of our land, you are free to tell people, what are you hiding from Congress? Answer the question. Did you testify to witnessing the President of the United States declassifying documents, yes or no?
Senator, the grand jury testimony is available to you. I encourage you to make it public.
As you likely know, the second volume of Jack Smith's report about the classified document case is not public yet. To fulfill our constitutional duty of advice and consent, the President, on nominations, members of this committee have asked the DOJ to review the report. Do you agree that Congress should thoroughly review its nominees? Yes or no?
Yes.
This is the second part of the Jack Smith stuff. Jack Smith, basically, when he submitted it, he's like, I'm submitting both of these. You decide what you make public, what you don't. I'm just submitting them to you. And they made the first one public, but did not make the second one public yet.
Okay. Now, last question, and I'll be done. When you and I met, you told me that you wanted to remove 11,000 FBI personnel or move many of them, and you said that again today. You have looked at an org chart to understand what offices and functions that you'll be pulling from. I don't think you've done a serious analysis, but I do think you have an assignment from Donald Trump to gut the FBI. You said yourself, I'll shut down the FBI Hoover building. There are people specifically that you are targeting, I believe.
And making a museum to the deep state, by the way. I don't think we should leave that off.
And do you agree that you have already prepared plans to remove certain individuals from their offices? For example, individuals that will be replaced by political personnel. The political personnel that are being put in an institution that you and I discussed that has no political appointees but one, the political personnel involve these names: Erica Knight, Tom Ferguson.
You stated your question. Would you answer? Or don't you want to? Okay, let's move on. Senator Blackburn.
Well, so he's out of time, basically. You stated your